It's been a lot of fun watching Dallas Turner develop over the last few weeks, but is the progress real? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Today on the show, a couple of insights from the tape. I wasn't able to look through all of it. Short week, weird timings, but I did kind of hone in. I figured I'd focus on something, and it's the question that everybody has asked probably the most all year long. Questions that I think the people are most interested in now that we've sort of figured out how we feel about Sam Darnold, wherever you are on him. You probably have your information. But it's about Dallas Turner. Is Dallas Turner coming along? What's the deal with him? The story of Dallas Turner this season, I think bears a little bit of discussion. Here's the deal. I've done now 3 Patreon videos on him in the last 3 weeks. Been really dialed in on this guy, but it's all disorganized. The Patreon videos that I do, you can find them at patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. But the Patreon videos that I do on these guys are usually chronological. I just go do the plays in order. They don't have a particular, I'm not sorting them out by here are the run plays and the pass plays and the ones I like and the ones I don't. No, we just kind of go play by play. And it's a little bit more exploratory than it is trying to organize a bunch of information and come to a conclusion. And that informality is part of why I wanted to do a Patreon, so I could do something a little bit more relaxed. So go check that out if you want it. But let's organize the thoughts a little bit. And by the way, if you want to see all that film, there's now 3 videos up. 2 of them are free to watch. The last 2 weeks are free to watch. The one about the Bears game will be free to watch after the Seahawks game. So patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. That's where I'm getting a lot of this. I'm pulling a lot of this is from, I showed my work over there. So the deal of Dallas Turner is where I want to start. I want to sort of remind you of the story of him. This can be something you can revisit later for a vibe on where we were at in this moment in time on the first round pick, especially, if the result gets super extreme, if he's a crazy bust or, in 2 years, or if he's a Pro Bowler in 2 years. This will be really funny to look at this moment in time. And so I want a record of it. But basically here's where we've been at, right? All through training camp, all through the preseason, Dallas Turner was the third guy behind, obviously, Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard, arguably behind Patrick Jones. He was behind Patrick Jones inarguably for a long time earlier in the season, but he was firmly with the 2s, right? Maybe even a little bit with the 3s. And that was the first people started to go uh-oh, right? This guy, this first round pick that we traded all these picks for is, immediately that makes, I think, people put unreasonable expectations onto a rookie. You trade a lot of picks for someone and they expect that thing needs to be a superstar immediately. We have to go now. And I don't think that that's fair or reasonable at all. They picked him 18th overall, I think, total. And whether or not you agree with how much they paid to get to that draft slot should be a completely separate conversation. And you can like it or you can dislike it, but it probably shouldn't tell you what you need to think about Dallas Turner, right? But either way, okay, he's behind these 2 guys. These guys are veterans, starters, you get it, and they're playing well out the gate, so it's not really a huge concern. But after the first game, where Dallas Turner gets his first ever sack, and it's great. It comes on a stunt. It's a little manufactured, but we take those, right? First sack for the rookie in his first game. Okay, excellent, great stuff. And then his snap counts diminish. And they go down a little bit, and then they go down a little bit more. And then by the time the Vikings are coming off of their bye, they come out of that bye, they drop 2 games in 5 days to the Lions and the Rams. And in those games, Dallas Turner plays 5 snaps, then 3 snaps. He's basically completely out. And he had missed one of those early games as well with an injury. So we weren't sure, is it still that little injury? I think he had a knee thing. Is that still bugging him? Or is he just falling out of favor? People started to say, this is the next Lewis scene, right? People started to crazy overreact to that. And the snap counts went back up later, But I think I kind of think people made up their minds in that moment. And I hope that you didn't. If you did make up your mind, I implore you to unmake it, especially if you made up your mind based on only snap counts. And I think this is what has bothered me about the story of Dallas Turner this year, is how much of it is predicated on snap counts. Without listening to Locked On Vikings, if you're locked on every day, or you know more than this, okay? We're doing great over here. We work harder than everybody else, okay? Be proud of that. But let's say you never heard anything from me about this, or maybe you are a new listener, in which case, welcome, and I hope I can give you what you came here looking for today. What information would you have about Dallas Turner that you've heard from somewhere else? You maybe have pressure counts, but like if you go back and look at the articles that like local media and national media especially were writing about this in the aftermath of the Vikings loss to the Rams, where we had a little bit of a mini bye, Dallas Turner had taken 8 snaps in 2 games, and people were starting to ask Brian Flores questions about it. And Brian Flores basically said, everyone chill out, be patient. We love what this kid is doing. It was just, it was just what we were doing that week. And he kind of deflected the question, but said, everybody calm down. And in like the evidence presented for Dallas Turner is struggling almost entirely is snap counts, his diminishing role, his disappearing act, whatever you want to call it. And maybe you would get like a PFF grade or a pressure count in there or something, but it's still all very surface level, right? That doesn't tell you what he's struggling with at all. It doesn't tell you if the problem is run defense or pass defense. It doesn't tell you if he's struggling to rush the passer. It doesn't tell you if he's struggling in coverage. It doesn't tell you if he's struggling with matters of power, with matters of speed, with mental issues. It tells you nothing, right? So part of the reason that I've been so locked in on this, especially on my own personal Patreon side of things, is A, I just sense curiosity from people and I want to satisfy that. And I have my own curiosity that I want to satisfy. But B, because I want there to be more depth than just snap counts, right? We are, I think, understandably, you see a player not playing and you assume he's on the bench, he's benched, he must be bad. Like that's but I think we're jumping to the answer to a question instead of just asking it. Does that make sense? Like we're not asking, hey, why isn't Dallas Turner playing? We are assuming that Dallas Turner isn't playing because he's bad. And I want to try to usher people away from that. I don't think that that's right. So what Dallas Turner was doing, for one, you cannot ignore the Grenard and Van Ginkel aspect of this. There just aren't going to be that many snaps to go around when those two guys are playing at like demonstrably Pro Bowl levels. They're both, I think, top 5 at their position in Pro Bowl fan voting. So I kind of feel like we can't be like, well, how's he not getting on the field over those guys? Y'all love those guys. It's like everybody agrees those guys are killing it. We're doing great. Maybe not getting in over Patrick Jones. That's another thing. Patrick Jones has 7 sacks on the year. Like these dudes are going crazy. And after the game, I think I mentioned this yesterday too. After the game on Monday night against the Bears, Grenard was asked about his reaction to Dallas Turner's sack that he got on Monday night. And what happened was Dallas Turner got the sack and Jonathan Grenard, who was not in on the play, ran in off the sideline to come like celebrate with him. Like he was just that hyped. And I think it was Ben Lieber asked him about that. And he said, yeah, well, that's my young and that's my guy. But then he went on to kind of say like, look, every single one of us is going to eat. Everybody in that whole room, from, Grenard to Van Ginkel to Patrick Jones to Dallas Turner to Gabe Murphy and Jihad Ward. Or they call him Hottie. I'm always like, who's Hottie? Oh, Jihad Ward. But everybody eats there, right? And we have to get used to this, especially if Brian Flores continues to stick around. Who knows what the political situation is there. But especially if we stick in this Brian Flores defense, even if he does leave and we get somebody else to run it, that's obviously going to be probably the thing they try to do, that rotation is really important and that everybody gets in. And so somebody coming off the field, we got to kind of deprogram our brains to think about somebody coming off the field as like a punitive measure. And it's just rotation. It's just we're getting everybody in because everybody gets in. It keeps everybody fresh. It's a strategic thing that they do that's not necessarily a reflection on the coach's thinking of quality. So I wanted to start with like the snap count thing. But his snap counts have gone up in the last couple of weeks anyways, which makes that whole point kind of moot. So what does the actual gosh darn tape say? And then I also want to do a quick aside about motion, Kevin O'Connell's defense, and an unsung hero from the Monday night game that you probably didn't catch, but I think was vital to the Vikings winning. That'll all be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win, all at America's #1 sportsbook. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats and view live play-by-play and so much more, right on the same page where you place your bets. And whatever it is that you go and gamble on, you can take the shortest odds prop that you can find. Take an alternate total of 19.5 points. That's usually a 5-digit number. You get absolutely no juice, but assuming that the Vikings-Seahawks game, let's say, does get 20 points scored in it total, which happens almost every time, you can put $5 on that and get 30-1 odds, $150 in bonus bets to get yourself started. I recommend doing that. Go to FanDuel.com to join today. And again, you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. You got to win it, but you can make it really easy on yourself if you're smart. That is at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode is also brought to you by the College Football Playoff. It's that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports' coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff Kickoff Show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, every single day. Enough pussyfooting around, enough dilly-dallying, and enough tiddly-tiddly-ing. Let's get into the tape. So there are a couple of main trends in these Dallas Turner videos that I want to get to, and a lot of them boil down to Dallas Turner being small and also fast. And I don't want to lose his speed. I don't want to ask him to bulk up because I don't want to harm his speed. I do just want him to kind of work and get stronger. But that doesn't mean adding bulk. I don't want him to gain weight. I just think, spend your time, condition right in the offseason. You're 21 years old. And I think what will kind of naturally happen with the right weight regimen will be fine without having to ask him to change his body type for this. But what that means is that you get plays. There's a play in this Monday night game where he drops into coverage. By the way, Dallas Turner dropping into coverage is starting to get about as good as Van Ginkel is. He's getting really consistent about what he's supposed to do when he's dropping into a hook zone. It's almost always a hook zone for these guys that drop out of a sim pressure, right? And what that means is, so let's say you're on a side, there's a couple of receivers on your side. What you want to do is, as you back off, peek the receivers and see what they're doing. They'll tell you everything, right? They'll tell you if they are setting up a bubble screen, you're going to go attack that now, right? You know what you got to do. But really what you're trying to do is you're looking at those receivers, you're trying to feel how many vertical stems there are, because that changes all your rules, depending on the coverage you're in, depending on the rules that Flores has, some of which I'm familiar with and some of which I'm not. But whatever it is, you see two vertical rules that's going to kind of change vertical route stems. You see guys, head out over their toes, booking it, trying to go deep. That's going to change the way that you space out your hook zone. And that's the way that teams have to be coaching zone defense nowadays. You can't just drop to a landmark and sit there. Quarterbacks are too good at picking that apart and throwing, okay, if you're going to have one guy on the numbers and one guy on the hash, we'll throw between the numbers and the hash. They all know the landmarks. They're there. Everybody can see them, right? So you have to relate to routes. And to relate to routes, you got to see the routes. So you need your eyes to be over there. And I think he's gotten a lot more confident about taking his eyes off the quarterback and putting them on to the receiver the way that he is supposed to. And that has helped him to park himself exactly where that route concept doesn't want him to be. And that is, then forces the quarterback to move on or at least hesitate for a second. And then the pressure can get home and, all kinds of good things start happening when you start slowing down the operation. All you got to do is gum up the timing and good things start to happen in this Brian Flores defense where pressure's coming all the time and very often unblocked, right? Like you don't need a lot of time. So the coverage drops are great. And part of that speed too, just being able to get from point A to point B quickly enough so that you can disrupt like a choice route or a slant or something like that is nice. And beyond that, that speed helps when he's on the backside of a run. So I'll talk about pass rush in a second, but let's go to run defense here. So when you're on the front side and the backside, the job is different, right? When you're on the front side of a run, assuming it's an outside run, if it's an inside run, you're basically just trying to curl in and squeeze it down, but that's mostly on the DTs, right? We're talking about outside run toward him, right? Or outside run away from him. When you're on the front side of a run, what you're trying to do is collapse it. And you get a tight end a lot of the times, especially, strong side, outside zone. They're going to block you with a tight end. So that's Cole Kmet instead of Darnell Wright, right? Like that's a smaller, weaker guy. So you got to collapse that guy in. They want the whole line to just shift over. You have to fold that front side in, and that ruins everybody's angles, and then suddenly the running back doesn't like his picture, and he's got to cut back. He did your job. On the backside, you have to squeeze down that cutback lane, because if he's on the field at the same time as, say, Grenard folds that thing beautifully every single time. He's awesome at it. And Dallas Turner is, I'll say, okay at it, but he's a little bit light, and sometimes he gets widened out a little bit more than you want. And then there's a lane. This is another thing that has happened less and less as time has gone on. And part of it is positioning and confidence. Like, he's lighter, but he's really, like at Bama, leverage was huge for him. He's got to have good leverage because he's light. That's how you beat guys that are bigger than you. You get leverage. So he was really great at that, but I think he was setting up a little upright and setting up a little hesitantly, because some of it was just not really knowing what you're seeing. And that's rookie stuff. We talked about that with Pete Bursich last week. It's just you're just thinking a little bit. He's not thinking so much and getting a little bit more aggressive and starting to hit with a little more oomph. That's really encouraging. But I like it on the backside too, because on the backside, that's where thinking really gets you. And in this case, you want to explain, hey, why don't we get any splash plays? He's in there for 25 snaps. He doesn't have a tackle. That happened a couple times earlier in the year. Like, why? Well, a lot of it is because he is on the backside of runs a lot. They line him up a lot on the same side of the running back. And that means, in shotgun, that running back is like same side zone runs are not all that common. Opposite side zone runs way more common. So they're going to run more at Grenard and less at Dallas Turner. And the Vikings kind of forced that by putting Dallas Turner on the same side of the running back all the time. That means he's going to be backside. That means he's doing a lot of chasing down. But it also means anytime there's a remotely mobile quarterback, doesn't need to be a read option quarterback. It can be anybody that you're worried about a bootleg with. You have to kind of stay home and be conservative. So his job has been the quarterback a lot. And because he presents a give read every single time by design, if you're going to do like a read option, right? He puts himself at the quarterback to dissuade the quarterback from keeping. We're going to hand this thing off and then we're going to trust all my teammates to run fit. That's by design. That's what he's supposed to do. But it kind of by definition means he's not going to be very involved. But he does that properly. The thing is, the job doesn't end there. If you're a really good backside edge, you're going to come at the quarterback a little bit, or at least, stay home and present the read that makes the quarterback give the ball away. And then you want to squeeze down that gap. You want to get to that last blocker. And that's either shuffling or surfing your way down there or just kind of like turning and going or whatever. But you want to squeeze down that space so that if there is a cutback lane, because Grenard did his job and the running back has to come back, now it's not there. You're there to clean that up. And I think he was a little slow about that sometimes, and you saw some runs cut back. You may see like a lot of zone runs with all kinds of cutback lanes. Sometimes that's on him. Like a lot of those were on him. And again, less and less over the last couple weeks, he's starting to get a little more confident, but he's still a little slow at that. Van Ginkel, not slow at that. So if we're in an important situation, Gink's going in. So that's the run part, like boiled down. In terms of pass rush, in passing situations, he's either on the inside rushing against a guard, and a lot of times he's doing dirty work there. Just trying to rush the right shoulder to give Jonathan Grenard the the two-way go, or Van Ginkel the two-way go he's supposed to get. He's sacrificial in a lot of those. But a lot of times too, they will put him up against whatever the good tackle is. So like against the Bears, they have that 72, that rookie. Dallas Turner didn't go up against that rookie like once until the twos were in, until they're like blowout mode and Brian Osborne was on the field and Bo Richter's on the field with him, Until then, they put Grenard on the struggling third round rookie tackle, and they put Dallas Turner on Darnell Wright and said, okay, good luck with Darnell Wright all game. Now, Darnell Wright, he's no Trent Williams, right? Turner has seen way better tackles than that all year long. And Grenard has seen the worst tackles. Again, this is a choice you do by design. Put your good guy against their bad guy and let's get a mismatch and win. And Grenard is like playing out of his mind because of it. But we're sacrificing the rookie a little bit, and he's happy to do that work. Beating Darnell Wright on that sack, by the way, I'll give you that. So one of the big things on him was toe angle. I mentioned it yesterday, but essentially your toe takes you where you want to go. You want to know where somebody's going to go on a pass rush. Pause right at the moment they're about to turn the corner. When they take a step, when their inside toe, as soon as their inside toe hits the ground, look at the angle of that toe. That will point exactly where that guy will go. And if that toe is pointing past the quarterback, like it hasn't turned enough and it's pointing upfield past the quarterback, that guy will go upfield past the quarterback and he'll get washed past the quarterback by the tackle. If it's turned a little bit further around, he's going to be able to cut that thing off, flatten it out, get to the quarterback. You'll see it. And that's a flexibility. I will say he's probably better rushing from the left than from the right at that. Just maybe that foot is a little bit more, it's like dominant side, right? So it's easier for him to bend around. But he was pretty bad at that. And so seeing him get a sack on Darnell Wright by doing well at something he struggled with all year, very exciting to me. I want to see him string more of those together, right? I don't want that to be a one-hit wonder kind of thing. But very nice to see that. So hopefully that gives you a sense for where Dallas Turner is at, both the good and the bad of it. I think he's getting better at a lot of those things, playing with a little more confidence, chasing down plays really well, hook dropping and coverage really well. When he's on that backside and it is just a handoff and it's time to just go get involved, he just screams across that. That speed is great and it's there. The power, sand in his pants kind of stuff, working on that, right? Trying to get to that leverage and to set up that leverage, you need confidence. You need to be confident in what you're doing so that you can focus on doing it, with gusto and setting up. And then, in pass rush, I'll give you the toe angle thing, but there's a whole bunch more about pass rush to say. I'm writing an article about it for Wide Left. You can check out my Patreon videos for more. But for now, I want to move on to a couple of thoughts on the offense, including that unsung hero I've been talking about. That'll be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you love watching the game, you, of course, are going to love PrizePicks, especially if it is a game that you otherwise wouldn't be all that into. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or whatever, you can put Justin Jefferson in a lineup with Anthony Edwards if you're into that. You can win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. And this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards. They call it Picks Mix, and they offer 2 free picks in December. So when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. So if you think Jared Goff will get more than or less than 230 passing yards, Saquon Barkley get more than or less than half of a touchdown, whatever it is, it's simple, it's fun. You can challenge yourself, just you versus the house, and compare what you're doing with what all your friends are doing and see if you all can win a little bit. Once again, that is at the PrizePicks app, code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly right after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. This episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. One thing that will kind of mess with your finances is when you're subscribed to a whole bunch of crap you forgot that you were subscribed to and you're still paying for. Rocket Money can help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about that you were paying for twice. It's a personal finance app that can help and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's your prescriptions, your spending habits, or even just like goals you want to hit, savings goals, whatever it is. They have over 5 million users and they've saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Moving along here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. So there's a few little schemy points that I want to make, but really the two things I want to drive home are, one, the unsung hero that I've been teasing, and two, I wanted to answer the question, what was Justin Jefferson talking about? So Justin Jefferson had an interview before the game, and he said, we just played him a couple weeks ago. We got a couple little extra things up our sleeve. We're really excited about that. I think I have a guess for what he was talking about. I'm not finished with the offensive tape as of this recording, so something else might come up later, but I think I have a guess. I'm going to give it to you, and if I want to come back and update that later, we can always have that conversation. But first off, the unsung hero. The two rushing touchdowns the Vikings scored, one to Aaron Jones, one to Cam Akers, you may have seen, were the exact same play call. Kind of a theme of the night with the Vikings repeating play calls and having success with it against the Bears. Not a great look for Chicago, but I don't know. They got bigger problems, to be honest. But there was, of course, that third down thing where they called the same play that they called in Soldier Field on the Nick Mullins play to Aaron Jones. They called the same one, and he converted again. And then he had the 3rd and 14 that was a very similar kind of catch and run thing, but to Hawkinson, and he converted. A couple of those things are pretty funny. But with this, it was a pretty vanilla zone play. As I understand in these concepts, the play is called Wanda. And that's where you have, it is a zone run, usually to the weak side, where the fullback blocks a weak side linebacker. And you run it out of various formations, but wherever the fullback is starting from, he goes and gets the weak side linebacker. I think it's Wanda. There's like Wheezy and like other similar plays that I could be mixing it up with, so don't worry too much about the terminology. But the thing about it is that it is a weak side zone run. On the weak side, there's no tight end there, but you can have a receiver. And that receiver is my unsung hero of the day. It's Trent Sherfield with a key, absolutely dominant block on both of these touchdowns. Both of these touchdowns came from an offset I with the F offset to the weak side. I don't know what their name is for that, but with CJ Ham offset to the weak side. And then Johnny Munt in escort motion across, and then basically double teaming with Trent Sherfield. So I guess that wouldn't be one. That would be closer to like Zorro. But Zorro requires it to be not a wide receiver, but something in that world. But essentially what that means is that you have 3 skill players as your kind of key blockers on an outside zone, and all you're trying to do is dent the defense, get yourself a second level, multiple levels of the defense, and, get the running back across the goal line. You only need a yard. That means Johnny Munt, CJ Ham, and Trent Sherfield all have to win their blocks. And not just stalemate. They got to push a guy around. And with Munt and CJ Ham, that's part of their job. And that's part of their expectation, is to be able to get a defender and move him a little bit, or at least, seal him off. Trent Sherfield, that's not his expectation. Wide receiver blocking is not the expectation. It's not the thing that people think of when they think of a wide receiver play, right? And these guys are given jobs that are often pretty hard. And if they don't get there, you go, yeah, but that's a hard job. And you're never really that mad. But Trent Sherfield does those hard jobs. And if you are wondering, Jesus Christ, why is 11 on the field and they took 18 off the field? It's probably because they're blocking. I wouldn't be surprised if Trent Sherfield being on the field was a run tell. But then you can use that for play action reasons. So you can kind of weaponize that if you do have a tendency. But just getting 2 key blocks on 2 touchdowns, short yardage, red zone has been such a bugaboo for the Vikings. And to just be able to knock 2 in because your wide receiver 6 is denting someone, absolutely rules. Absolutely love that. Go Trent Sherfield. So the motion thing. The motion thing I'm getting at is the Vikings used a lot of jet motion with receivers, Addison and Jefferson going across. And every time they did that, the Bears linebackers would all shift a gap. They'd shift over a gap. going to guess the Vikings knew that they would do that. I'm sure it was on their tape. But I didn't notice it in the game we had before, but I also wasn't really paying attention to that when I was watching the Soldier Field game. I was doing other stuff. So sure, we'll assume that they understood that that would happen, and that's why they did that. And then they used that shift against them. They would either run, cause them to shift one gap to the left and then run it to the right, or on the other touchdown, the third touchdown the Vikings scored in this game, they would, or it was the first touchdown they scored in this game, but the only one we haven't talked about. They used that motion to then stress a play action fake. So if you're a linebacker and you're responding to that motion, and what you're coached to do, you see that motion, the adjustment is you got to shuffle over one gap. Well, then they run the other way, and they've gotten you on it a couple of times already. So you're really stressed out physically. And I'm not talking not like mental, emotional stress, but I guess probably if you're on the Bears. But it's a physically like stressing play. You have to shuffle step one way and then trigger back the other way. You have to like put yourself behind the 8 ball and then go cover that ground right away. And you got to trigger really fast to make up that ground. And then it's a pass play. And you actually just triggered yourself way out of position. This is functionally what happened to Kevin Byard. Dan Orlovsky I think it's on NFL Live, did a great job breaking this down. And they got him with that a whole bunch. Essentially just like understanding where the Bears' motion was going to be and then using that against them. If you're Chicago and you're somebody like Eric Washington coaching for their job, trying to put enough on the resume so that you don't just clean the whole staff out at the end of the season, you probably need to show that you can make this adjustment because the Vikings kind of cracked your code. And good on Kevin O'Connell, who, by the way, now is leading the FanDuel odds for Coach of the Year. So get in on that if you still want to. Tomorrow, we're talking to Locked On Seahawks about the upcoming Seahawks game, and then we'll do our Friday, our over-under, our everything, but we're putting this one to bed, to be honest. It was a fairly ho-hum deal. A lot of this game was defined by the Bears just sort of falling apart in front of the Vikings and the Vikings taking advantage of all the free stuff and winning by 3 scores. So it's not one that I think you can learn a ton about the Vikings with. I think you could learn some about Dallas Turner himself. But I don't think you can learn a ton about the Vikings from this game, and that's okay. We take those with division wins. There's nothing to complain about there. But if you're going to like call a game the thing you define the Vikings by, I'd maybe look at like the Cardinals or the Falcons wins or something from earlier in the season. And maybe it'll be the Seahawks game. So we will talk about all of that for the rest of this week. I'll see you all for it. And as always, Skull.